And we're back at the rigs and techniques at the Parts View workbench. Dave,
Yes,
you
sir.
have got an entire plethora of things.
That's
here.
what you could call it. That's for sure. It's a wide range of stuff.
So tuna really aren't as picky as people think if they'll eat all of these things.
Well, no, they can be kind of picky sometimes, but it's generally not. It doesn't really have to do with what you have out there. It's about how big the stuff is. But first off, when you're to try to find, the ocean is 90% empty.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of big empty out of there, and Texas is lucky because they have those oil rigs and the drill ships, and which create their own ecosystem out there in deep water. And when you have that kind of thing out there, it attracts bait. And then when the bait comes, the tunas come, and then the marlins come. So, we're talking about tuna today, but that's the whole little ecosystem that comes up, usually during the summer, but right about now, if you can get out, before, if the wind dies down and you can get out there, it's a really good time because nobody's been harassing them all summer yet. They're more apt to eat now.
They're unmolested.
They're unmolested,
Yeah.
correct. So, like I was saying before, tuna are very size oriented.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trolling along and you see a bunch of big tunas busting and you can't see what they're eating, you don't see little baits jumping or flying fish or something, they're usually eating stuff that's real little. Some of this stuff I've got
little
up here.
teeny tiny stuff like this.
Yeah, like these. These are a great way to get a bite out of a big tuna fish. We call these kings, and sometimes they'll put them in front of a bait for kingfish or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put a nice an egg weight up inside there, however big you can squeeze in there to keep that thing in the water, and you troll that, about 6 or 8 knots.
And you put it on a fairly beefy little bait hook, like a
Correct.
live bait
Well,
hook.
that's the Trocar Live Bait HD, which is made to, it does not bend. Even that short shank little hook, it's perfect for putting in that bait because the tuna fish can't see it. Tuna have very, very good eyesight. Not only can they detect, tackle sometimes, but they're one of the few fish that really have a really great full spectrum color vision.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, if you can go as fast as you can go, it kind of keeps them from getting a good eyeball on it. You know what I mean?
So here's the trick now.
Mm-hmm.
You're pulling very small baits that are relatively light in weight compared to a bigger lure like this.
Right.
How do you keep this in the water?
Well, sometimes you just got to keep shoving weights up there, up that little skirt.
Maybe stack 1 or 2 behind the first one?
Correct.
Okay.
Until you can get it to stay in the water. Because
Okay.
it really doesn't do you any good if it's not in the water. It has to be moving in the water. And this is a good example of a chase bait where you have a little thing in the front and a bigger thing in the back. This is a great way to target them because if you've got smaller things out that they're eating, they'll go for the smaller one. And if there's some bigger tunas out there, they'll go ahead and smash that one in the back. And you can still catch. Those are jaw lures, actually, by the way. So those are a really good thing.
Now, if you've got some toothy critters around, I see you've got a couple rigged with wire, but not many.
Well, yeah, I usually don't. I was just pretty much using this one for this lure here. The island lure is a great little lure. You can put that on mono as well. That one just happens to be rigged up on wire. But if you're cruising along, at 6 or 8 knots again, even without a ballyhoo in it, a lot of guys like to put those ballyhoo in there. That'll still work without a ballyhoo.
Gotcha.
And then you have stuff like the old cedar plug, which, you can't really go wrong with a cedar plug. On 40, 60, or 80-pound ProSpec chrome fluorocarbon, you want to use fluorocarbon when you're targeting tunas.
Okay.
And you want to keep your stuff at least 75 to 100 yards back behind the boat. Sometimes even further. If you can't get a bite, just keep easing it back. Because again, sometimes it's hard to get a bite if the tunas have been getting slammed. Now, if you're seeing great big tunas out there, anything that'll look like a flying fish, if you see them eating flying fish, and the tuna you're seeing are 80 to 100 pounders, you can use regular marlin lures or a bullet lure. That'll stay under the surface of the water, even at high speeds. And tunas love to eat those things as well.
This looks interesting.
Yeah, that's that's one of my favorite lures, the Moldcraft needlefish. You can trim these skirts down if you want to, but if you put 2 5/0 hooks, these little HD hooks in there,
right,
a fish can't swim near that thing without getting hooked. Tuna fish. I've caught with striped marlin on those things. They stay in the water and they make a really good thing.
And
the Berkeley Magic Swimmer.
Swimmers work too.
Really good. Just change the hooks out on them if you're chasing bigger.
Key is
bigger
size.
tuna.
keep your bait or your lure the size of the fish
that they're eating.
and you should do
So
okay.
many ways to catch them in so little
is.
time.